What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be taking one of my breaks from the heavy. I like to do that every once in a while when we're talking a lot about some pretty heavy stuff here. You know, we talk about the paranormal and true crime and things that kind of drain our energy. So I like to revive myself sometimes, revive us and the channel, talking about kind of lesser things. And I didn't expect this particular story to be as creepy and strange as it definitely was. About a handful of you have been talking to me about this, mentioning it to me, wanting me to cover it, and I was wondering where it fit in. And I'm like, you know what? This is my channel. Anything I want to put on here fits in. So here it is, by popular demand, the story of little bastard James Dean's cursed Porsche Spyder 500. Was it really cursed? You may have a different answer to that after you hear this. I know that I did. I kind of rolled my eyes and I was like, yeah, don't get me wrong. I believe in cursed objects, but I remember hearing about this a while ago and everything that I heard just didn't sound like it was cursed to me. But of course, I dug a little bit deeper and wow, here it is. Now, before we get into the actual alleged curse of this beautiful, fantastically, deliciously looking, gorgeous, beautiful automobile here, and how it took out one of Hollywood's youngest and brightest in the era of the silver screen, let's talk about what made this particular Porsche so special. Aside from the fact that, you know, it's a Porsche. This particular Porsche was the first one of its kind that was ever built for racing. It dominated the 1.5 liter class. It took on and usually beat cars that were supposedly much more powerful, like Aston Martins, Maseratis, Jaguars, and even Ferraris. The vehicle as a whole was given the nickname the Giants Killer for this reason: its crazy ability to go head to head with these much larger cars. It had a production run of only 90 models, 80% of which still exists today. It had a flat 4 engine and hand-formed bodywork as well. In 2016, Jerry Seinfeld sold this exact model car for over $5 million. The model number given to this specific race car was 550-0055. This is the Porsche Spyder James Dean owned and affectionately nicknamed Little Bastard. This was a nickname affectionately given to James Dean as well while on the set of one of his movies. James Dean was somewhat of an expert at taming and racing powerful cars. He owned a lot of very fast vehicles and competed in countless races before his tragic death in 1955. Little Bastard, however, was something altogether different. With a 1.5 liter engine and 112 horsepower to boot, it was basically hell on wheels and the wet dream of any race car driver of the time. That 112 horsepower delivery was much more than was necessary for the 550 kilogram car. Immediately after driving it off the lot to show off for his friends, James Dean was able to get the car to the top speed of 150 miles per hour. Remember, this was faster than any car he had ever owned or even driven before. He perhaps should have taken a bit more time getting used to or taming this beast before doing such stunts, but I digress. The Spyder seemed to cause trouble from the minute he bought it too, and gave off a very creepy vibe to some of Dean's closest friends. His good friend and fellow actor Alec Guinness, who played Obi-Wan Kenobi in the original Star Wars movies, warned him of a really strong gut feeling upon first laying eyes on the beautiful beast that was the Spyder, and even went so far as to tell James Dean he would be dead within a week if he continued to drive that car. Wow. That's really strange. What makes it even stranger is it's the guy who played Obi-Wan Kenobi. So was he like doing some Jedi mind trick thing? Like, how did he know that? It's just way too strange, guys, starting right from the door. Obi-Wan, though, was not the only one worried about this car, and he also wasn't the only one who got a really bad gut feeling. James Dean's uncle, Charles Nolan, also warned him of a bad vibe he was getting from the car and admonished Dean for being so reckless with his driving it. As crazy as it may sound to most people, I'm sure here in this community it will come as no surprise that exactly 1 week to the day after receiving the warning from Obi-Wan himself, Alec Guinness, James Dean died in a crash while behind the wheel of his beloved and brand new Little Bastard. Another little irony here was 2 hours before the accident, which cost him his life, James Dean was pulled over and given a speeding ticket. A real rebel without a cause, right? He was ticketed and cited for doing 65 in a 55-mile-per-hour zone, so 10 miles over the speed limit. On September 30th, 1955, at just 24 years old, James Dean was driving his new car to an auto rally in Salinas, California, when he was in a head-on collision with a 1950 Ford Tudor. At around 5:15 p.m., the Ford Tudor was passing through an intersection while at the same time making a turn ahead of Dean's Porsche. James Dean uttered his final words to his passenger and mechanic, Rolf Wolterich, don't know if I'm saying that right, and he said, quote, "That guy's gotta stop. He'll see us," end quote. However, the driver of the other vehicle did not see them, and Dean was driving too fast to be able to really even slow down much, let alone stop in time to avoid the collision. He ended up slamming into the driver's side of the other vehicle and was dead on impact. He had broken his neck, among other fatal injuries. His passenger was thrown from the vehicle, which was actually what may have saved his life. He had sustained serious head injuries and a broken leg. Something that struck me as a little odd here, though, is while the mechanic Rolf Wolterich survived this near-fatal crash, he went on to die in another motor vehicle accident just a few years later. Meanwhile, the other driver, 23-year-old Donald Turnipseed, walked away from the accident without so much as a scratch. Dean was trapped in the overturned car. I don't know much about cars, but this Porsche specifically looked literally like a tin can, and I envisioned in my head it smashing like one as well. James Dean wasn't even originally planning on driving Little Bastard that day, which, by the way, as I mentioned previously, was Dean's nickname too, which was given to him by his acting coach. Anyways, he originally was going to tow the car to the race, but ended up at the very last minute changing his mind. After the accident, since it was totaled, a man named George Barris bought it so he could sell it off for parts. During transit, however, the car fell off a lift and onto his leg. He then decided, for whatever reason, to lend it to either a highway safety program to demonstrate the opposite of safe driving, or it's also said the car was toured throughout the country in a kind of safe driving awareness and accident prevention presentation, mainly for high school age and college age kids as well. I think it's the latter. I think it was toured because of information that I came across, but I wanted to give you both so that some people are going to be like, no, this is what happened. There was a lot of conflicting information in my research, so everything that I say might not be the exact same as what you found. So anyway, the car fell off a lift onto this guy's leg, broke his leg, shattered some bones, and he decided he was going to let it tour. I mean, the look of this car was absolutely horrific, and just knowing, not just because he was James Dean, but that a young man, a 24-year-old man with his whole life ahead of him had died, it's really tragic. And the car, when I look at pictures of it, and I'm going to see if I can get some that aren't copyrighted, it gives off a creepy vibe. It really does, because you know that someone lost their life. So anyways, the car fell on him, and Barris felt weird about the car. He got, again, a gut feeling before it even fell on him, and afterwards it was even worse. He was like, what is up with this vehicle? So he actually wanted to put it into hiding because he knew how sought after it would be, knowing not only that it was James Dean's death car, but also the car was just sought after in general due to how awesome and also how rare it was. Instead of hiding it though, that's when he decided to lend it out. Between tours, the car was being kept in a garage, but the initial garage was destroyed completely in a fire with everything inside going up in flames. But Gemma, you might ask, the car went up in flames? No, everything went up in flames, that is, except Little Bastard. The car was completely unharmed. There was no new damage, no fire damage. While on display after the fire, for one exhibition or another, it fell off of its display and broke someone else's hip. So after all of these accidents were happening, the owner of the car decided that he was just going to sell it off for parts. I guess he didn't think that the parts could possibly be cursed too. However, unfortunately, he was deadly wrong, pun intended. Another race car driver named Troy McHenry bought the drive chain. This is another bizarre incident that took place surrounding not just the car, but some of its parts. So now the parts are coming to be cursed, it seems. Because although McHenry bought the drive chain, that's actually not what was in the car he was driving. He was actually in a race driving another Porsche Spyder and while racing this car, which had Little Bastard's engine in it, a donor engine, the brakes locked while he was making a turn, and McHenry crashed into a tree and died on impact. So that's 2 deaths and twice that it fell on somebody. Actually 3 deaths if you count James Dean's. As if this weren't proof enough, at least to me, that this car and all of its parts are definitely cursed and should never be ever used again, and possibly scrapped or recycled or burned and the ashes buried in the ground or something, the man who was hauling the Porsche back to LA after it was no longer going to be used in the safe driving showcases lost control of the rig. The whole thing flipped over, and this driver too was killed immediately upon impact. In 2016, a Washington state resident named Sean Riley said that there was a scar on one of his fingers that really bothered him, as he couldn't remember where he got it, and it was a nasty little scar. He decided to undergo hypnotic regression, and the story he told was very interesting, at least. According to him, his father had brought him along on a job, and they were meeting people who wanted to buy a wrecked performance car. That car was a Porsche Spyder 500, and he had gotten a nasty cut off the wreckage of the car. Somehow. He passed the lie detector test, however, and though I have no idea what this has to do with anything, here it is. It was in every single document, every single thing that I can find about James Dean's cursed little bastard Porsche Spyder 500, so it's got to be important somehow. I'm sure if I went into some kind of rabbit hole and looked up Sean Riley and the cut on his finger, I could have presented you guys more, but again, this was just a little break from the heavy. A cursed car. If you want to know more about cursed objects, I'll be putting the information, my email and all that at the end of the video. The car itself was allegedly hidden in some garage in Washington state somewhere, but the ownership was kind of shady and got really confusing. Some recent news though is 60 years after they disappeared and 65 years after making up the car that killed James Dean at just 24 years of age, in the prime of his life and with his star definitely on the rise, some of the parts were actually found and can actually be traced right back to Little Bastard. The chassis, the engine, and gearbox transaxle were found in rural Massachusetts, where they were stored in a wooden crate and hidden for all of these years. I think this was extremely smart, and also think it very unwise to allow these parts to be sold for use in either automobiles or even put on display in a museum or something. Maybe a museum for cursed objects where nobody's going to be able to touch it and it's going to be blessed somehow or whatever, because remember, it was on display like at least twice already and fell and broke someone's hip, shattered someone's leg. Not on display, but it was put up. In my humble opinion, this is some dangerous stuff to be messing with right here, especially when most of the rest of the car is still missing and causing who knows what kind of death, damage, and or destruction on the roads of our country, even to this very day. The transaxle was authenticated by experts and found to be the real original that was in James Dean's car and a part of the crash that took his life. It's stamped with the correct factory serial number 10046. This might just be the only documented and provable part that exists today from the original vehicle, though the people and experts involved are pretty sure the rest of the parts that were found with it, which were all parts that were for the same type of vehicle, are in fact also a part of the original car in question. This all begs the question though, where were these parts for the other 35 years? Could you have brought a junk part and unknowingly ended up with accursed objects being put into your vehicle? That's all I have for you today, guys. A little short, sweet video just to kind of give you a glimpse of what cursed objects would be about. This one wasn't, I mean, I don't want to say it wasn't too bad, but it wasn't, you know, who knows what's cursing this thing. If you want to hear more about cursed objects, let me know in the comments below. If you've had any experiences with the paranormal or the supernatural, please send them in so I can make them a part of our Listener Encounters series. Email me at GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com. If you want to hear more about cursed objects, please let me know in the comments below. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, if you liked hanging out with me, spending this time with me. Subscribe if you haven't already, and spread the love by sharing this video. Also, please check out the description box for some important links. The first will be Justice for Caleb Smith. It's a 2-hour live interview Steve Stockton and I did with Caleb Smith's mother, April Arrington. Go on and check it out. Give it a thumbs up. Share it, share it, share it. Please, guys, it means so much. That's the support you can give. Let's give it. Let's get the word out there and get some justice for Caleb and his family. Also, I'll put links for Fireside Chat that Steve Stockton and I do on Sunday nights. We do Real Evil on DeZombified's channel Wednesday nights. and Campfire Stories on missing persons and mysteries on Friday nights. The times and the channels are all in the description box. Please click those links, listen to them, give them a thumbs up, put a comment, subscribe to the channels. It all helps. There will also be links to my PayPal or Patreon if you want to donate to the channel. That's all I have for you tonight, guys. Be kind to each other always. It will make you feel so good. Smile at a stranger. Go in grace. Have your best day. Have your best night. I will see you next time. Mwah. Bye-bye.